Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly fuel prices double. Within hours, trucks stop moving, flights get delayed, supply chains freeze, entire countries start to panic. Now here's the scary part. This doesn't start with a war. It starts with one tiny stretch of water. Look at this map. Right here. Nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through this single point every single day. And if this place gets blocked, even for a short time, the world doesn't just slow down. It begins to break. But here's the real question. Why is the entire global economy service on one narrow route? And what would actually happen if it suddenly shut down? Now, look at this map. This narrow stretch of water is called the Strait of Hormuz. It sits between two countries, Iran on one side and Oman on the other. At its narrowest point, it's only about 39 kilometers wide. That's it. But what flows through this small gap is massive. Now, zoom out a little. You'll see the Persian Gulf, home to some of the world's biggest oil producers. Countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Iraq. Every day, huge oil tankers leave these countries, and almost all of them have only one way out: through this strait. Watch the arrows on the map. They all squeeze through this single narrow route before spreading across the world. Asia, Europe, America. It never stops. Now, here's the problem. This entire system depends on one route. There's no easy backup, no second path. If something blocks this strait, even partially, everything starts to slow down. This is what experts call a choke point, a place where a huge amount of global supply is forced through a very small space, and that makes it fragile. Now, look closer at the map again. On one side, you have Iran, a powerful country sitting right next to this route. On the other side, global interests are heavily present. Navies patrol nearby, especially the United States Navy. So this isn't just a shipping lane, it's a pressure point. Tensions here don't stay local. They affect the entire world. And this isn't just theory. In the past, there have been threats to close this strait, moments where conflict almost turned into disruption. Now, here's what makes it even more dangerous. Even small incidents can shake the system. A damaged ship, a warning, a military move, and suddenly, markets react. Oil prices don't wait. They jump within hours, sometimes before anything actually happens. That's how sensitive this place is. So the real question is, how easy would it be to actually block this route? Now, look at the map again. Everything is moving smoothly. Oil tankers line up and pass through the Strait of Hormuz one after another. Every day, dozens of ships enter and dozens leave. It looks routine, predictable, almost boring. From the outside, nothing seems wrong. Countries export oil, ships carry it across oceans, markets stay stable. Everything works, as long as nothing goes wrong. And for years, this system has continued like this. Quiet, controlled, constant. But systems like this don't fail all at once. They start with pressure. Now watch what begins to change. Tension starts to rise in the region. On one side, Iran increases its warnings. On the other, global powers respond. Military ships appear on the map. Patrols increase. Surveillance tightens. The United States Navy moves closer. Not for attack, but for control. At the same time, political statements grow sharper. Warnings turn into threats. And suddenly, the idea of closing the strait is no longer impossible. even if nothing has happened yet, the market reacts. Prices begin to rise slightly, not because of action, but because of fear. Because everyone knows what this place controls. And when fear enters the system, stability starts to crack. Now, here's the part most people don't expect. The strait doesn't need to fully close to cause chaos. Look closely. A tanker gets damaged. Another one changes route. Reports of mines appear in the water. Suddenly, movement slows down. Not stopped, but disrupted. And that's enough. Insurance costs for ships shoot up. Some companies refuse to send vessels through the area. Others delay shipments. Traffic becomes unpredictable. Now watch the map. The steady flow of arrows begins to break. Gaps appear. Delays grow. And this is the surprise. Even without a full blockade, the system is already under stress. Because it was never designed to handle uncertainty. Now imagine the worst-case scenario. The strait is no longer just risky, it's blocked. Ships stop entering. Nothing moves through. Now look at the map again. The arrows disappear. Completely. And the effect is immediate. Global oil supply drops, not slowly, but instantly. Countries that depend on this flow suddenly face shortages. Now something new happens. Nations start competing, not for growth, but for survival. Prices don't rise gradually. They spike violently. Fuel becomes expensive overnight. Airlines cut flights. Factories slow down. Transport systems struggle. And panic begins. Not just in one region, but across the world. Because this isn't just about oil anymore. It's about everything that depends on it. Now zoom out to the global map. The effects start spreading. Asia feels it first, then Europe, then the rest of the world. Fuel shortages hit transport systems. Shipping delays affect food supply. Prices rise across multiple industries. And here's the hardest impact. Developing countries suffer the most because they have fewer reserves, less flexibility, less time to react. Now the crisis is no longer regional. It's global. And it all traces back to one narrow stretch of water. Now, step back and look at the full picture. One narrow route controls a huge part of the world's energy flow. That's the cause. And the effect? A system where a single disruption can ripple across the entire planet. That's the real vulnerability. But here's the reality. A full shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz is extremely rare. And there's a reason for that. Because the consequences are too big. Multiple countries depend on this route, not just for exports, but for stability. That's why powerful forces stay present in the region. Naval patrols, surveillance, constant monitoring. Not to control trade, but to make sure it never stops. At the same time, global pressure acts as a barrier. No single country can shut this down without triggering a massive response. And that creates a strange balance. The system works, not because it's strong, but because everyone is afraid of what happens if it fails. And that's why this tiny stretch of water holds so much power. So, what does this really show us? The world isn't just connected, it's dependent. Modern life runs on systems that look strong, but are actually fragile underneath. And the Strait of Hormuz is one of the clearest examples of that. One small disruption here can affect millions of lives far away. Fuel, food, transport, prices, everything is linked. Now, think about the future. As demand grows, this dependency doesn't go away. It increases, which means any conflict in this region doesn't stay local. It spreads fast. And that's the hidden truth most people don't see. The most powerful places on Earth are not always the biggest. Sometimes they're the smallest points on a map. And if those points fail, the impact is global.